Welcome back to another episode of From Prosecution to Perseverance. My name is India Lampkin. I am your host, and I want to thank you all for joining me for another important conversation. In our last episode, I had the privilege of interviewing Ms. Earls from the Prairie View A&M University's Archives Department, a woman with over 40 years of service to this institution, a guardian of our history, and someone whose compassion for students is deep. And her knowledge of this campus, she shares stories that reminded us how Prairie View began as a boarding school for young Black girls, a safe space in a structural learning environment, and truly one of the earliest educational systems for African American women in Texas. Today, we're shifting from the past to the present, from the story of where the institution began to the story of what students are facing now. Today, we're diving into intersectionality, how identity, gender, race, class, and institutional systems collide to shape the student experience, especially here at PVAMU. If you listened to this last episode, you heard Ms. Earls share the origins of Prairie View, land once known as the Alta Vista Plantation, the Kirby family home, and how Helen Kirby transformed that home into a boarding school for colored girls after the death of her husband. That part of the story moved me because it showed me that even in the harshest of Reconstruction, even in a world still relying from slavery, Black women sought education as a weapon, as a shield, as a pathway to possibilities. But we also stood out where the gaps, the untold stories of financial struggle, mental struggle, and institutional struggles that existed even in the earliest years. It made me realize something. Our present day's challenges are not born out of nowhere. They're connected to a long history of Black students navigating the system not always built for their success. Today's episode isn't just about gender, and it isn't just about race. It's about places where these identities intersect, where they overlap, and where students fall through the cracks. Intersectionality is a term introduced by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, tells us that people don't experience oppression or barriers one at a time. A Black woman isn't just dealing with racism or sexism. A low-income student isn't just dealing with poverty or institutional barriers. A Black male student isn't just dealing with stereotypes or academic pressures. They're dealing with all of it at once. And when those pressures pile on top of each other, the experiences become heavier, more draining, and often discouraging. Intersectionality explains why students struggle quietly while others never return after a semester. It explains why the numbers look the way they do. It exposes the truth behind challenges students face today. Let's take a moment, not to the Kirby Hall era, but decades following the emancipation. After slavery, society developed strict expectations for Black men and Black women. Black men were pushed towards laborious roles, farming, railroad work, steel mills, long-distance hauling, manual physical demanding jobs, work that required no normal education, work that positioned Black men as laborers rather than intellectuals. Black women were pushed towards domestic roles, cleaning, cooking, childcare, service work, and eventually teaching and nursing. These were women's roles, often undervalued but requiring training and education. So historically, Black men were encouraged to work immediately. Black women were encouraged to enter roles requiring schooling. And that pattern never fully disappeared. Today, the same dynamics show up in the enrollment data. 67% female enrollment, 33% male enrollment. Black women dominate higher education nationwide, not because Black men lack capability, but because society still expects Black men to work before they learn. And intersectionality explains why both groups still face barriers, just in a different way. To understand why students struggle today, we have to understand the political climate in the past, because the institution you used to see today was shaped by political decisions made over 150 years ago. After the Civil War, the South resisted Reconstruction at every turn. States did not want to integrate schools, they did not want to share resources, they did not want to invest in Black education. This refusal led to the Second Morale Act of 1890, requiring states to either integrate land-grant colleges or create separate ones for Black students. Texas chose segregation, and Prairie View became the result. It was never fully funded the way white institutions are. It was never given equal support, and that underfunding continued through Jim Crow, through the Civil Rights era, and even in modern budget. PVAMU became a place where progression existed, excellence existed, brilliance existed, but resources did not always match student needs. And today, campus struggles from mental health support to financial aid delays to understaffed departments reflect that history. Intersectionality means we can talk about student struggles without talking about the systems and politics that shape them. Now, let's talk about today the data. 21.27% dropout rate, 11% graduation rate for those on a 4-year graduation plan, compared to 41% of those on a 6-year graduation plan. These aren't just numbers. These represent real students, real lives, real struggles. Mental health challenges. Students are overwhelmed, not just academically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. The pressure to juggle classes, job, family expectations, and financial responsibilities become too heavy. Campus mental health services, while helpful, often don't have the capacity to support every student in crisis. Emotional stress. Students carry trauma, family responsibilities, academic pressures, social pressure, financial anxiety, and often no one notices until something breaks. Financial struggles. Food insecurity, house insecurity, car trouble, unexpected expenses, all while balancing work and school. These are leading causes of dropouts, even more than grades. Lack of institutional support. This one hurts because it shouldn't be happening, but it is. Students often report unresponsive departments, unclear processes, servitude. Because these were some of the few professional paths available to Black women, education became a survival tool. Meanwhile, many Black men were discouraged from school, pressured to work, or pushed into military service or boot camps. These are the roots that still shape our enrollment numbers today. The modern gender gap in higher education. Today at Prairie View A&M University, 67% of the student body is women, 33% is male. This gap is not small, it is structural. Black women today still experience discrimination in the workforce, but they often turn to education for protection, mobility, and financial independence. Black men today still feel pressure to work immediately, to avoid debt, to appear strong, to support family, all reinforced by historical narratives created long before they were born. This is intersectionality. It's not just identity, it's weights of history sitting on identity. So when we talk about the numbers and who enrolls, who persists, who graduates, we're really talking about who the system was built for and who it wasn't. Now let's talk about the political climate. After the Civil War, Reconstruction promised opportunity, but that promise was short-lived. Southern states refused to integrate schools. They refused to provide equal resources. They refused to acknowledge Black students as deserving of education. This resistance led to the Second Morale Act being passed in 1890, which required states to either integrate or create separate land-grant institutions for Black students. Texas chose separation. That's how Prairie View received 1,300 acres of land. Not because the state wanted to have fairness, but because they wanted to maintain segregation without violating federal law. This political truth behind Prairie View's existence, a college created for black students, not out of generosity, but out of obligation. Fast forward today, and the political climate still influences our campus. These systematic issues push students away, even those who desperately want to stay. And that's intersectionality in real time. Race plus gender plus finances plus mental health plus institutional failure. We can't talk about intersectionality without addressing black men. Black men face unique challenges, stereotypes of aggression, pressure to stay strong, fear of appearing weak for needing help, work expectations, financial pressures, and less emotional support. Black men who struggle academically often feel isolated, asking themselves things like, or telling themselves these unimaginable lies that society pushed on them, such as, if I ask for help, I'll look weak. If I fail, I'll disappoint my family. If I can't afford tuition, I'll just start working instead. This is why the dropout rate is so high. Not because of ability, but because of pressure. Intersectionality reminds us that black male students need more than academic support. They need emotional safety, mentorship, and environments designated to help them stay enrolled. On the other side, black women face a different set of challenges. Even though they dominate enrollment, they still navigate gender bias, racial stereotypes, financial strains, safety concerns, social overextension, burnout, and being expected to do it all, especially by themselves. Black women are praised for perseverance, but often ignored when they need rest or help. Their success does not mean they aren't struggling. It means they're pushing through it. They're pushing through the struggle at a higher rate. Intersectionality explains why the most enrolled demographic still experiences the most stress, the most burnout, and the most expectations to hold everything together. Let's bring this back full circle. Prairie View started as an all-girls boarding school, a place built for safety, a structured environment designed to support learning, a home for black young women who needed protection and preparation. Kirby Hall was not just a building, it was a sanctuary. Now, when I learned all this, when I sat in the archives and listened to Ms. Earls, read the documents, and connected the dots between past, present, and maybe even the future, it changed me. It forced me to confront not just the history of the university, but the reality of what students face today, what I face today. And I'll be honest, it hit me personally because some of the struggles I researched were the same ones I lived and still living. The same barriers I've seen, the same systems that felt impossible to navigate. This project didn't just educate me, it revealed me to myself. And now, that wraps up today's episode, From Prosecution to Perseverance. Today we explore intersectionality and how gender identity, politics, and system structures all collide to shape the modern student's experience. As we close, I want to thank you for listening, learning, and walking with me through these conversations. I also want to honor Ms. Earls again for sharing her wisdom, compassion, and her truth, because without her storytelling, this entire series would look different. Next time, we'll be talking about solutions, not theories, not complaints, but action. Something new, something needed, something connected directly to the struggles we discussed today. Now, I want to leave you with a hint about the next episode. Something that could shift the students' experience on this campus in a major way. I'm not giving you any more spoilers, but trust me, you're going to want to hear it. This is India Lampkin. And thank you again for joining me from Prosecution to Perseverance. Until next time, stay grounded, stay aware, stay in pursuit of something great, and never forget that Prairie View A&M University produces productive people. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.